Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel. Together, we're going to be diving into some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. People who've maybe pushed their bodies, their mindsets, or maybe society's paradigms. So you're going to find yourself maybe wanting to laugh, cry, or even be inspired. We would invite you to share, like, and subscribe, to sign up for our newsletter as well on activateandilluminate.com. Now, just keep in mind that this information that you are going to hear is informational and educational for entertainment purposes only. This does not constitute professional advice of any kind. The views expressed are those of myself and guests only. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional and legal advice regarding their own situations. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for being here. Hey there, activators. So today, we are having an open mic jam session with a trans man, Dean Rasmussen. Now, this conversation started around a bonfire. It started around me just having some curiosity, maybe a few too many questions about so many things. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, in my life, I haven't spoken with a ton of trans people. This was the most honest, I would say, illuminating conversation with a trans person I have ever had. And we get right into so much about his life. So I wanted to bring you guys along with me because I know I had so many questions. We talk about a lot about society's questions, you know, some of my individual ones and a lot of his life experience. And I thought I would bring you along for the journey. So join me for Dean Rasmussen. Hi, everyone, and thanks for being here. Today, I am here with Dean Rasmussen. Now, Dean is a trans man who I have had the honor of meeting, and I had so many questions for him. Maybe a little too many. But I just thought, you know what? I have questions, and we had such an engaging conversation. Now, Dean was completely transparent with me, and we just decided that the next best step would be to have an open conversation about this for you all to listen to, too. So, welcome, Dean.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Well, so we're going to get into your story and, you know, how your life transpired and all that. But to start off, tell us, when was the moment that you knew that you were a man?
So that's a pretty loaded question because as a little kid, I knew I was a boy. I didn't really understand it, but I definitely knew it. But as an adult, so about 8 years ago, I was dating a woman and she said to me, "Are you trans?" And I said, "No." And the moment I said no, I just had a light bulb and I thought, it's exactly what I am. And it makes so much sense. It just explains so many things that I'd been questioning for so long. So I guess that's when I knew I was a man. Before that, I knew I was a boy, and then I had a journey that went totally opposite of that.
Yeah. So now when you were in that space 8 years ago, tell us about your life then.
So a year before that, I had a miscarriage, and I was a Christian homeschooling mom. I had 2 teenagers and 3 kids under 3, and I miscarried baby number 6. And I just all of a sudden thought, what am I doing? Who am I? What is happening? This is what have I been doing all these years? I'm not being real. I'm not being me. I thought that all just came down to my sexuality. I hadn't understood anything about my gender yet at that point. And so my husband at that time and I, shortly after that, we separated and, you know, kind of went our separate ways as far as partners go. And then I just started living a little more true to myself.
So tell us what that looked like to you in that moment.
So
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
I guess at that time, it was more just like I said, I just assumed at that point, I came back to assuming that I was a gay woman. Like 15 years before that, I had come out for the first time after I had my first two kids, and I put myself through conversion therapy because I thought I needed to get fixed. I didn't want to be different. I just wanted to fit in with everybody else, and so I put myself through conversion therapy, and I thought that it worked. I became really involved in church at that time, and I just had like a really strong faith. And I realize now that I am just a really spiritual person, but at that time I just really wanted to belong. I just always wanted to belong somewhere. And so I spent years just raising my two oldest kids and homeschooling them, and then I decided that I wanted to have more kids, and so I got married again, and I had three more kids, like I said, in 2.5 years, had and then all of a sudden everything just kind of blew up for me. I just realized I just wasn't being myself. I just wasn't being true to who I was, and I didn't want that for my kids. I really like want my kids to be able to be themselves, and I realized like I can't really connect with people if I'm not being my true self. And so now that I'm being more true to myself, it just makes such a difference with being able to like connect with other people and finding that belonging as myself now.
Yeah. I think that makes sense for anybody. Whenever people aren't being themselves, there's a disconnection, isn't there?
Yeah, because we're disconnected from
Yeah.
ourselves. Like I was
Yeah.
completely disconnected from myself, and I realize now like I had so many kids because I was just pouring myself into motherhood, like because that was the one thing that I knew that I always wanted was to be a parent. Like that was the only thing that's the only thing I've known for sure always was that I wanted to be a parent. And so it's not that hard to become a parent if you are a woman and if you want to have kids, I guess. It was easy for me at that time.
I had three in just over 3 years, and 3 and 2.5 years sounds, I know that, I know what that meant. And that sounds pretty daunting. So tell me, has your perception of masculinity changed at all through this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I had to come to terms with what it meant to be a man because when I first realized that I was trans, I thought, okay, fine, cool. I feel that I figured that out about myself and I'm willing to accept that about myself, but I'm not going to transition. I can't transition. Like I'm a mom. If I can't
Yeah.
be a man and be a mom, like, and I felt at that point too, like yeah, I feel like I'd put my kids through a lot already by that point, and I wasn't going to now also transition and put them through that as well. And then it was just, different conversations with my oldest kids, and they really encouraged me to just embrace myself and be myself. And, so that definitely helped. And I also went and saw like a peer counselor, I guess. They were another trans person. And so they helped me to just realize like what does it mean to be a mom? What does it mean to be a dad? What does it mean to be a man? Like, and I came around to realizing like I'm the same parent that I always was. Honestly, I'm a better parent now than I was before because I'm just living my truth, and that just makes me a better person and a better parent. And so, once I came around to understanding that, there's different types of dads, there's different types of men. I don't have to be, the type of dad or man that I am envisioning in my mind. And it's weird because growing up, like my parents were really young when they got married and when they had kids, but they're still together. And I honestly, I think they're happier now than they ever were when we were kids because man, that's tough getting through that. But my dad was he's the one that's done, he was always the one that did all the housework, did all the like both my parents worked and they were definitely equal partners, but he did a lot of the things that typically kids growing up my age would think like, well, those are women's jobs, I guess, at home. But
Yeah.
he was definitely the one that did all those things, but I still couldn't really wrap my brain around that. But my mom was more the nurturer. Like my dad's not he's more nurturing now that he's getting old, because I think we do get more nurturing as we get old, but he wasn't a nurturing kind of guy. Like my
Yeah.
mom was definitely a nurturer, and I'm definitely a nurturer. So that was hard for me to understand that men can be nurturers, and it's society that stops men from being nurturers. It's not that I don't think any of us are born not being nurturers depending on what gender we are. It's we all have that. We can all have that nurturing in us, or maybe some of us just are naturally nurturers and some of us aren't, but that has nothing to do with sex or gender, in my opinion.
Okay. So tell us that your kids, how old was the oldest to the youngest when you went through this?
So 20, my oldest would have been, I guess, right around 20.
Yep.
And my youngest was about 2.5, I guess, at the
Oh,
time.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're 11 and almost 28 now. That's where they span now.
Wow.
So yeah.
Do you think, with everything that we're seeing and hearing in the news, do you think there's a specific time frame that's appropriate for transition?
Like for yourself or for your kids?
No, for I'm not necessarily looking to put it on the calendar.
No, no, not yourself. I mean, though, like as an adult or like as a parent, I guess is what I'm getting at. Anytime, anytime.
Now my face is going all red. Um, no, for kids, do you think there's an appropriate time for kids, or do you think that this is something that should wait until adulthood, or what's your thoughts on this?
So yeah, I mean, I definitely have really strong thoughts on this, both as a parent and as a trans person. I think that the appropriate time is whenever your kids tell you. Like some kids will tell you when they're quite young, and some kids don't realize it about themselves until they're older. Now, I think a big thing, like everyone is dead. There's lots of like fear put out there as far as like kids having surgeries and kids going on hormones, and I'll tell you, like kids are not having surgeries, and young kids are not going on hormones. Kids, if they've, after they've gone through their talk with their like psychiatrist and their specialists and such, then they may go on hormone blockers. And what hormone blockers do is they just put a pause on puberty so that you don't go through puberty so young. And we use hormone blockers even for cis kids, kids who, are developing faster than we want them to be necessarily, or that's healthy for them, or things like that. Like all kids, not all kids go on hormone blockers, but it's not just a trans kid thing.
Okay.
And it just gives them time then. It gives them time to until they are a little bit older so that they can, make those decisions somewhat for themselves. And I think that when you know your kids and you have a relationship with your kids, then you just have those talks with your kids. And if your kids are adamant about the fact that they are trans, and kids don't use the word trans because kids don't know that word. I didn't know that word. But
Yeah.
if you have a kid that, is assigned female at birth and they're telling you I'm a boy or I'm a brother or, things like that, then just listen to them. There's no harm in listening to them. There's no harm in letting them go on blockers if that's what you and their doctors decide. And there's a lot of harm, especially for trans girls, to go through puberty, to go through male puberty. It's tough because there's a lot of irreversible changes that happen. Their voices can never get higher with estrogen. Their their face shape, things like that, the body hair, those things don't go away. Like once you've gone through male puberty, those things are there to stay.
Do you,
And that's really difficult for trans women.
do you think it's easier to go trans man, or sorry,
Yeah, it's absolutely easier to go female to male. Like I mean, I can walk around in the world. I have birthed 5 babies, and I can walk around in the world and people just see me as a guy. And that's
I
just
didn't know you were a trans man when I met you. Yeah.
yeah, and that's just a few years of testosterone, right? Like I've been on testosterone for 6 years now. And
Okay.
so, but trans women don't usually have that same experience, right? Especially if you're transitioning later in life like I did, if there's just irreversible things for trans women that they just can't change.
Yeah.
Their height, and it's not that cis women can't be tall, but It's a harder thing. That's the only thing for trans guys. We're usually short boys and we just have to deal with that. But there's short guys out there that are cis as well. So
So, is there any part of the transition that surprised you?
I mean, there's definitely things that I like that I wasn't sure that I would like. Like I really wasn't sure. I knew I would like it when my voice started dropping because I never liked my voice. I always had issues with my voice. I didn't understand
Okay.
why, but I understand now. And honestly, I didn't even have that high of a voice, but I like it a lot better now for sure. So that I knew I would like. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about the facial hair and the body hair. I'm like, I don't know. But now I like it, and now I wish I could actually grow some facial hair. I am starting to grow a little bit of a mustache, so that's fun. But my dad can't grow facial hair, and my brother can't grow facial hair, so it's kind of
And then you
I
got
probably
girls
wouldn't have been able
again.
to either. Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, exactly.
Things that I never thought I'd spend
Oh,
so much time with in my 50s, tweezers.
exactly. Yeah, I'm really glad I never tweezed my eyebrows like everybody in my generation did. So now my eyebrows are kind of graying, so they're not, but they're thick at least somewhat. I don't have the little, tiny little
Yeah.
eyebrows like some of my trans guy friends ended up with.
Okay. So tell me about we were talking when we met about some of the how the healthcare system worked. And tell us how that works for people because yeah, I guess there was a few things about our discussion that surprised me a little bit. So tell us about, the costs, what.
So it's definitely long waiting lists, always long waiting lists. And it took me 2 years, at least 2 years before I was able to get on hormone replacement therapy, before I was able to go on testosterone. And then it usually takes at least 2 years. I guess it took me probably 2 years, 2 years plus to see the gender psychiatrist in order to, get any sort of referrals for any surgeries that I would want. And then you have to go on another, 2 to 5 year waiting list for those surgeries if you're getting different surgeries. And so the waiting lists are always really long. The cost of the hormones is definitely expensive. I don't know what it's like for trans women. I'm just going to assume it's probably more expensive because everything just seems harder for them really than it is for us guys. I mean, that's our world too. Everything's harder for women than it is for us guys. It's just the way it goes. But yeah, even just testosterone, like I was giving myself a shot once a week, every week, and I had to pay for that testosterone. Now I'm on a testosterone gel that costs it's almost $200 a month just for that gel so that I don't have to continue to stick myself with needles every week because I don't really like doing that. It's not very fun, and then just trying to get doctors. Like it's so hard. It's so hard for everybody to find a doctor, but to find a doctor that's willing to take on a trans patient is almost impossible. Like I called one clinic one time and that was here in Edmonton and in an area that I thought was a really progressive area. And I called the clinic and I asked if they had any doctors who were just trans friendly. I didn't even necessarily need them to take on my trans care, but just to be willing to accept that I was a little bit of a different looking patient than what they would expect. And they just laughed. The receptionist just laughed and I thought, okay, well, I just said, do you have any doctors who are trans friendly or trans accepting? And the receptionist just laughed, and I thought, well, I guess I won't make an appointment at this clinic. And then I just didn't make an appointment again at a clinic for honestly a couple of years, I guess. Like you just don't. You just kind of like, I'm just not going to bother then, and just until you can try to find somebody who's willing to not laugh when you give them a call, I guess, right?
Yeah. And maybe I mean, not to play the devil's advocate, but maybe she was laughing out of her own inability to know what to do or say.
Yeah, I can see that because that I mean that does happen for sure, right? And I
Uh,
think who I am now, I probably would have continued having a little bit of a conversation with her. Who I was then, that was like really early in my transition, and so I was definitely a lot more, just more, I don't know, shy and nervous and not willing, not a very good advocate for myself, right? I've
okay.
always been a really good advocate for my kids, but I have a lot harder time advocating for myself. But I'm getting there. I'm starting to do that a little bit more now. So
Yeah. Has it changed your personality at all? I know what we just talked about was a little bit of a
Yeah, I mean, deep down, no. I
Yeah.
think that my personality hasn't changed at all. Who I present to the world has definitely changed. Like, I'm definitely a lot more, I walk around a lot more confident. I walk
Okay.
around, it's definitely, but I mean, a lot of it has come from just being myself now and being able to be out in the world presenting as myself. But a lot of it also just comes from like the amount of privilege that I experience now is just unbelievable. Like, I guess that is one thing. Like, when you ask me if there's something that surprised me when I transitioned, that's definitely something that has surprised me. Just the amount of privilege. Like when I first was transitioning, my littles were still little. And so when I would take them out to the grocery store and things like that, people would just praise me for being out at the grocery store with my kids. Like, look at this great dad, taking his kids to the store. And I thought, when I took my kids to the store last year,
As a
everybody
mom.
just thought, my goodness, get those children under control. But now I'm just looked at as this, super dad. And it honestly, it pissed me off, like part
Yeah.
of it feels good, but it honestly just really irritates me. And, because it shouldn't be that way, it definitely shouldn't be that way. And now though I'm experiencing, it's interesting because now I'm experiencing it in a different way because like I said, I love kids. I absolutely love kids. I love babies. Well, now that I'm out walking around the world like a guy, I can't talk to little kids and babies like I used to.
Yeah.
People look at me like, back up, Mr. Creep, what are you doing? Right. And honestly, I used to be that person too. I used to be like that. If men wanted to talk to my kids, I'd be like, what do you want to talk to
Yeah.
my kids for?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang,
But
some guys just like kids, and it's not a bad thing, right? And
yeah.
and when I go to my kids, if my partner and I go to our kids' parent teacher interviews now, the teachers will just talk to my partner, just assuming that she's my kid's mom, and they'll just talk to her, and she's funny because she'll be like, I don't know, ask him, like he's the one that knows them. I don't know. And I
Yeah.
say, well, you make yourself look like a bad mother, and she's like, yeah, but I'm not their mom. Like, I'm in their life and I'm their stepmom, but you're their parent. Like, you're the one that's been involved with them, since day one. So you have the answers that they're asking, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like the teachers just don't talk to me like they used to, which is interesting, because they're like, oh, this is a dad. He probably doesn't really know. So yeah, it's an interesting place to be, for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'm just thinking back to raising my husband often worked away, and I was often the one at the parent teacher interviews. And yeah, they would have just assumed that the female is generally the one that's the most involved generally.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
so
And it's not that it's necessarily the wrong assumption.
no.
No, like it doesn't just come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
But it just makes me realize that like we need to start making some changes in the world for sure.
So is there anything that you miss about, identifying to the public as a woman?
Yeah, I think I would say like connection. Like, honestly, so much comes back to me to connection. So because I was able to connect to women with women as a woman, that was just different. You just have, from my experience anyway, women just have deeper connections with one another. They have deeper friendships, they just have deeper connections than what men seem to have. And so find trying to and then you don't have those same kind of connections as a man with women, obviously, because it's just frowned upon, I guess. And you just don't have those same connections with men don't have those same connections with one another either. And and I don't know if that's like, I'm sure that's a generalization. I'm sure there's some men that definitely, make deep connections and have deep friendships. And maybe I just haven't found those yet because I'm still in this place of like, I spent 40 years experiencing life as a woman and have a lot of life experience that is similar to a lot of other women where men have not always been people that we can trust and have caused harm and things like that, right? And I've been in abusive relationships. I had sexual abuse as a child. Like, there's just different things that have prevented me from feeling safe enough to connect with men, probably. So I'm sure that plays a part as well. But I also do think that men just are not taught that it's okay to connect deeply like women are.
Yeah.
So I definitely miss those connections.
Do you think there's a part of you that, because of your past that you just explained there, felt safer presenting as a man?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was interesting the first time that I was walking down the street, like later at night, and realized like there was a woman walking down the street in front of me and she crossed the road. And I thought, oh dang, like she thinks I'm unsafe now. And so that's a weird place to be in too. It's weird to be in that place of now other people feel unsafe with me automatically, which I understand. I don't blame her at all for sure, but I definitely feel much safer out walking the streets and, not that I walk the streets often at night, but
Yeah.
but I definitely feel safer, but I also am always on high alert because I'm always thinking, well, people are going to find out. People are going to find out that you're trans, and then that could be scary for sure, right?
Yeah. So when you were out of the closet as a lesbian,
I never used that word, and I never really understood why I didn't use that word, but I understand it now. I always just considered myself gay. Like the
okay.
word
So I'm not,
lesbian for me just felt ick because that's a term that is attached to women, right? And
yeah.
so for me, yeah. So as gay, I came out as gay. Sorry.
Okay, so you came out as gay. But did you, so when you came out as gay, do you feel that, do you, is there any part of you that feels that some of this transitioning was made easier by those experiences of past abuse? I guess what I'm trying to get at, Dean, is I know some people that I feel they've been hurt so bad that it's safer to be a man or a woman, or something like
Right.
that's the driving focus, right? So when you said that feeling of safety, and I'm not questioning your choices or anything that you've done, but
Mhm.
just tell us how you felt about some of those feelings of safety in your decision making process.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely something that I really struggled with and that was I mean that's honestly one thing why conversion therapy why I thought it worked for a while
Tell us
and
what that is.
why
Tell us.
so that's so it basically so for me I went to the pastor at my church and had like counseling sessions basically to help me realize that because I was sexually abused as a kid, that's why I don't trust men and that's why I prefer to connect with women. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay, so it's not that I'm not attracted to men, I just don't feel safe with men. Makes perfect sense. I thought, okay. Um, and then I also, part of my conversion therapy, I also like went through a deliverance and stuff. So they kind of like did this like exorcism to, get the gay out of me. But my joke now is always that they prayed the gay away and made me trans, and that didn't work. But yeah, so then that in a sense that was like an easy thing for me to be like, okay, that makes sense. It's not that I'm gay. It's because I was abused. So let's heal the trauma from that, and then I can be fine. And I was like fine, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
was fixed, I thought. I've come around to realize, so I'm pansexual. So it just means that for me, like my sexuality it's not bound by gender. I'm attracted to people regardless of their gender. So I am attracted to men as well as women and non-binary people. And so that added to my confusion, I guess, until I figured it all out. And then when I was transitioning, again, I went through that same thing of like, okay, is this just because I was abused? And I wanted to try to figure out, like, I wanted to have these two buckets basically and like put these things in, like, is this because I'm abused? Is this because I'm trans? And try to figure out like what's what here. And I went to therapy for that. And the therapist at the time said to me that she worked with a lot of women who were abused, but they don't all, sorry, one second. But they're not all trans, right? So not all women who have dealt with any sort of sexual abuse or any other abuse transition. So the fact that I'm trans has nothing to do with the fact that I was abused, and that really helped. That really made sense for me. And
Yeah.
I thought that makes sense because I also know, I mean, how many women haven't been abused? I think that's a much lower number, right? So, but you don't have that many trans men walking around in the world. So,
Yeah.
just because for me, I am trans and I was abused, those two things are, you know, they both are a part of me, but they, one didn't make the other happen. And then there
Right.
is trans people who weren't abused,
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully that
So,
answers your question.
yeah, I just wanted just a little bit more clarity there. So tell us about, or do you have any contact with your previous partners and stuff? Your previous relationships? Are you co-parenting?
Not really. No, no.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my little's dad is not very involved in
Okay.
their lives anymore, which is, it's sad, but he's a very religious man, and so he just can't put himself in spaces with us, I guess. But yeah, no, I don't really want to talk badly about him, but
Yeah.
I can't really say anything without talking badly, so it's probably best if I just say no. He's not in the picture.
So
Mhm.
when people, what is there anything that you wish people knew that we don't know? Because I feel like so many of the questions when you and I sat down initially, like I was coming at, like I felt like this naive little girl that didn't know anything about just so much of your reality. I felt like I hadn't actually had any experience with. So I felt like I was maybe asking the wrong questions. I felt like maybe I was curious about things that perhaps some people knew about a lot more than me, and perhaps some people don't. But what would you say that you would love people to know that most people don't? Or is there anything?
I think a couple things. I think one thing is that being trans isn't like, it doesn't make me, certainly doesn't make me a monster, that's for sure. And it doesn't make me any different of a person than I was pre-transition. And I think another thing is for people to realize that I think a lot more people have met trans people in their lives than they even realize. And I think that's one thing that we kind of talked about, especially trans men. A lot of trans men transition and then they just are walking around the world as the men that they are, and nobody knows that. Or even trans women who transitioned young enough, like there's trans people that are out there that you're interacting with that you don't realize that you're interacting with them. And we're not these scary people that that's, I don't know, I think that's a big thing is, we're just people, like everyone else. And
Yeah, I feel like it was interesting when you had declared at that first event, you had said something that stuck out to me. And if it's okay with you, I'll repeat it.
yeah, absolutely.
You had said, I don't generally feel safe in cisgendered groups like this. And
Uh-huh.
first of all, this, like, I didn't even know what cisgendered meant. So I had to go and Google it because I was like, what? Like, what is he referring to? And so then I was like, but it felt like the assumption was is that it would be unsafe. And I was like, what? Like, it's not going to be unsafe. Like, that was my thought, right? Like, I was like, but and by the same token, me declaring that I hadn't spent a lot of time with trans people does not mean that I think they're unsafe, but
Right.
it's just not a reality, right? Like it's just not there's not too many people in my little town an hour outside of Edmonton that are declaring themselves trans. And so I feel like there's just some ideas that we have that may or may not be the perception of the other person or the other people or the other segment of society, right? Because just yeah, anyways, those are just my thoughts and I'm
Yeah,
stumbling all over them.
and yeah, to clarify, like when I say safe, I don't always mean physically safe, of course. Of course,
Yeah,
I didn't feel physically unsafe, right? It's
yeah,
much more of like a psychologically safe, and it's not even necessarily what anybody else is saying or doing. Like sometimes it's just
It's
that
just your own.
there's the energy. It's sometimes it's my own, and a lot of it is my own biases. We all have our own biases, right? Of
Yeah.
course. And it is just, it's that how safe am I to tell you exactly who I am?
Okay.
How safe am I to, like, how safe is this going to feel to completely share with you who I am? That's more for me what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's being in spaces where, if I'm in spaces with, all other trans people, of course I feel 100% safe to share everything about exactly who I am. If I'm in a room full of, you know, white, cisgender, heterosexual men, especially who I guess maybe any age, probably, I, I'm not going to I'm not going to feel that safe to tell you exactly all of who I am. And I sometimes feel that way with women as well, right? Like if I don't feel like there's anybody else in the room who might have at least somewhat of my lived experience, then I don't know how safe I'm going to feel to share exactly who I am. And that's kind of more what it is. And for me, if I can't share who I am, then I can't really connect. Like I feel so much more connected with, the smaller group that we've now spent time with
Yeah.
together than I did in the large group, because
Yeah.
I know with that small group, I know I can just be who I am,
Do
you
you
know?
think it's just a matter of time? Just once like that? I think all of us have those, feelings when we go into something of like not opening up at the beginning or like in public.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Part of it is
Yeah.
definitely time, but other parts of it is, and I'm sure that that's not just a trans experience. Like
Yeah.
when I
100%.
think, when I think back to pre-transition, there was rooms that I was in, even if we all looked the same, it doesn't mean that they were necessarily people that I would have felt safe getting deeper with, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's just we all have different people that their energies feel safe, and others who just kind of feel like, no, I'll just
I'll
only
pass.
keep it at the surface here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it just always takes a little bit more time for me to know,
Yeah.
and the unfortunate thing is there's people that I do feel like I could connect with, but then all of a sudden the fact that I'm trans does put that barrier up, and that's tough. Like that's unfortunate. And then of course that hurts, right?
Yeah.
And it happens, and I don't judge the people when that happens, because I know we're all in different places in our journeys. And like I said, I was a Christian homeschooling mom for a lot of years, so I would have been one of those people at one point for a while, right? Where I would have been like,
Interesting.
I don't know that I want to spend time with a queer person,
Yeah.
so I get it. I've had those experiences.
So would you have said that your judgments at that time were it's interesting that you're experiencing the judgments now that you yourself had at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because I remember my second oldest was 9 at the time, and there was stuff going on in media. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they came to me and they said, "Tell me, like, what do we feel about? Do we like gay people? Do we not like gay people?" And I said, "Well, our church would tell us that no, we're not supposed to like them,
Yeah.
but that's not how I feel." And so already at that point, I was like, okay, I can't get on board with this. Like, this is
Yeah.
one thing that I can't tell my kid that we're not going to accept people no
Yeah.
matter what. And so I do remember having that, and they remember that talk too. They remember
Yeah.
me saying, like, our church is going to tell us, like, no, that's not okay. We don't accept that. And but we're not gonna do that. Like, we're gonna accept people. We're just gonna
Yeah.
accept everybody where they are, and go from there, I guess.
I think that's like the goal of life is for all I mean we're all involved in like different things. There's so much division rampant. There's so many ideas and thoughts and politics and different things that could easily divide and easily take you
Uh-huh.
away from who you think you are. And for any of us to know that to be in a system or a church or a job or a marriage or whatever it is that, and when that doesn't like sit with your personal values, to be able to say, no, this is what I think, that's to be commended, because I think right now personal sovereignty, no matter how you describe it, is what everyone is really struggling for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
Right?
I heard a quote the other day that hopefully I don't butcher it, but it goes something like, it's not our differences that divide us, it's our disconnection that divides us. Because
So
honestly,
true.
like I've never connected with somebody and not had that divide disappear, right? It's
Yes.
not, as soon as we start connecting, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we're just all
Yeah.
humans,
Yeah. It's
like, and
humanity.
yeah, like I don't want to sit here and talk badly about any people or anybody's, organizations or belief systems or anything, because I have two aunts who are Christians, and they accept me and they love me, like, in a way that I would have never expected,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, so it's not for me, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So now, right now, you are in school. You're finishing a degree, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, going back to school as a mature student is definitely different. Being with a lot of younger people and stuff. But I just love learning. I just absolutely love learning. And one of the big things for me is, so now that I'm going to school, the university that I'm going to has a medical center attached to it. So now I have a doctor there. And so
Okay.
that's great. I actually have a doctor who is doing my trans care, and so that's really good. So now I just say I might just stay a student forever, so I always have health care.
So,
So I always
so,
have a doctor.
so is this now? Does the school provide gender care? Like, or is this
So
is this to do with you in particular? Or is this any student?
any student
Any.
that goes to the school, anybody who works at the school too, actually can
Okay.
go to their health center, their clinic, I guess it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
as students, are you given like is it really good healthcare?
I wouldn't say it's really good, but we do have healthcare there. Like, we have benefits there as well, which helps. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to be on the testosterone that I'm on if it wasn't for the student benefits, because it
Okay.
covers the majority of the cost. So that really helps. Like, it's, that definitely helps. But the doctor care is really
Okay.
good. Like, just to be able to go to the doctor there and to be able to be at school there, and like most of the staff are walking around with pride lanyards, and most of them aren't queer, but they're showing that they're safe. And so that really helps, just being in an environment all the time where at least that you're surrounded by some safe people, for sure.
Do you think it's that the rest of the world isn't safe? Is that your perception?
I don't think that the rest of the world isn't safe. The unknowns are safe, I guess.
See, because to
I
me,
just don't know. I just don't know. If I go into a room and I say that I'm trans, I just don't know who's going to react how. And that can turn to even physical unsafeness.
yeah.
And so it's just always a little bit scary, for sure.
Okay. Have
And I
you?
do think people surprise me. I do think that, there's been people that surprise me who I think maybe this person isn't going to be safe, and they turn out to be really safe. So people surprise me all the time, and so I try to stay open to those, like, opportunities to be surprised, for sure.
Yeah, I guess it, like, to me, the notion of I've seen the schools shift over the last, even, I mean, so my youngest went into, how old's your oldest?
He'll be 28 next month.
28. So my oldest is just about 26. So close. But I've seen the shift in schools, and I noticed it's interesting because when you said that the pride flag denotes safety, I wouldn't have necessarily that had been your first word that you would have felt from seeing the flag. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the flag always represents this is a safe person.
Hmm.
This is a space where I can go and be safe. Now, unfortunately, that's not always the case either.
No, I
It's
don't
not
think
always the
so.
case that just because you see the flag doesn't necessarily mean those people are going to be 100% safe. You
Yeah,
know,
I think it's
that's
been abused in ways that,
yeah. And I mean, that's definitely been an experience that I've had too. Even like for me, a lot of times, like if somebody asks pronouns, I feel like, okay, this is a place that's going to be more safe. That's not always the case. It's sometimes they ask the pronouns, but then they don't use the pronouns. Well, then that sets me up for even more discomfort. Things like that.
and I guess like I guess some of my personal thoughts on this, and I mean, my thought is you don't always know.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't always, so
We
you don't
don't
know what
always
to
know.
do. So it's like, okay, like you don't know what to do, so it's just better to not infer anything.
Right.
If
But you
I
can always
infer,
ask.
yeah, but it's
You could ask in a way of, you can say, like, hi, I'm Mel. I use she, her pronouns. And then I would feel like, oh, now I can say, I'm Dean. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns.
see, but to
Like if
me,
you
is that not dividing us even more? Like I'm not saying that like, but if I'm like, okay, I can't do this, or I need you to say this to me, like all of a sudden it's like I'm no longer a person. I feel like I've been broken down into subcategories versus the all humanness of our experience, which is we're both people. And to me, this like the subcategories take us away from the bigger picture. But that's just how I feel about it. Tell me your thoughts on
right.
that.
And I mean, maybe most often it's not that important.
Yeah,
Like for you and I to sit down and have a conversation, it's for you, it's
it's
definitely not
irrelevant.
important at all, right? It is
Yeah.
absolutely irrelevant. But for me, it's not irrelevant
Is it because for so
because for
long,
me, go ahead, sorry.
sorry to interrupt you, Dean. Is it because for so long you were navigating the hallways of gender? Is that why it is so important?
I think for me, a part of it is because I'm not sure. If I sit down and start talking to somebody, I'm not sure. I don't know for sure who it is or what it is that they're seeing. Like I'm still in that place of I always just assume that everybody is thinking that I'm a woman. And
Hmm.
so I don't want that. And like I'm just now starting to realize that that's not the case. But now that's affecting me too. Because now when I walk into spaces and everybody just assumes that I'm a man, then I have to be constantly like code switching, like, oh, what can I say? Like if I go to talk about my kids and I'll say something about like, oh, when I had this one, and then, I had a trans guy one time tell me, oh, you can't say it like that. You can't tell people, you can't say like when I had this, when I had my 28-year-old, because you're a man and you shouldn't be having babies. And I'm like, but I did have babies and I'm never gonna not say that I had babies because that is a huge part of who I am.
Yeah.
And so until we can, I don't know, until we can get past that, for me, I don't know what I can talk to you about and what I can't.
See, but to me, for me to call you a he they doesn't bring me any closer to your humanity
Right, and I understand that.
as a person. Like I feel like it's actually like when I hear the labels, and it can apply to anything. As soon as there's those labels put onto it, it feels like we are taking a step back in inclusiveness.
Yeah, and like for me, it just makes me feel like I'm being seen for more than just this outer shell of what I am, right?
Okay.
It
So do
just
you feel like
I don't know.
if I didn't use your pronouns, do you feel like I am not seeing you?
I mean, first of all, if you use she, her pronouns for me, well, then that would affect me. That would like affect me to my core,
Yeah.
where I would like,
If you called me a man,
I wouldn't be able to.
me too.
Exactly. You know, like, yeah, if I'm like, oh yeah, that's Melanie. He's a cool guy. You'd be like,
You're
what the
like,
hell?
what? What about
Exactly.
those
And
hairs?
and so that's how it feels for me. But then it also it also hurts. Like for you, that wouldn't necessarily hurt you. You would just be like, damn, this guy's confused. Right.
Well,
But for me, it's like, for me, it's like, you're not seeing me. You're not seeing me if you're using the wrong pronouns for me. And so like, I'm totally fine with just he, him pronouns. But
yeah.
a lot of times I'll put like you'll see in I'll put he, they, and I'll say that I use he, him, or they, them pronouns because I want to start a conversation. And because I want you to realize that, okay, there's something more to this person than the fact that he is a middle-aged white guy.
Okay.
So that's why I like to have the they, them in there as well. Because I don't resonate with just being a man. I am a man, but I experienced life for 40 years as a woman. So that impacts who I am as a person. Absolutely. And that's not the case for all trans people. And not all trans people want to hang on to the gender that they experience life as and that they were socialized as. But I do. Because
Yeah.
it definitely is a big part of who I am. But don't see me as a girl either, because that just feels ick for me. Not that I don't like girls. I love girls. But that just feels ick for me.
You are a complex guy.
I am. I know. I am like the most simple yet complex person you'll ever meet.
So tell us challenges that your kids have had with this. Or have they had any?
I mean, to say they haven't had any, I would be fooling myself. I mean, guaranteed they have to have had some. My kids and I are super close, and we've just kind of gone through this together. But it definitely, so when I was first talking about transitioning, my oldest son at the time, he's like, but like, I'll forever be able to call you mom, right? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. You can call me mom forever, because I'm always going to be your mom forever. And then he ended up being the first one who said, okay, we have to call you something different because now this is weird. We happened to be in West Edmonton Mall one time, and he was about to like yell over at me to get my attention. And he's like, oh, he's like, I can't yell like, hey, mom anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to yell, hey, dude, because that feels like disrespectful. He's like, so we got to figure something out. We got to figure out a new name for you and my big kids didn't want to call me dad. For them, that wasn't, I was so much more, in their eyes at that time, I was so much more than a dad. Like, and so my kids call me Ren, which is a shortened version of like parent. That's a commonly used term for non-binary parents.
Oh, okay.
So they call me Ren or Rennie. My little kids call me Rennie.
R-E-N or W-R-E-N?
R-E-N.
Okay.
Yeah, just R-E-N. So that was definitely a shift for them to be able, to switch from me being their mom to me being their Ren and being more like a dad. And now when we talk about it, like my big kids, they're like, you were always way more dad-like. Like now that they're experiencing, with their partners and different people in their lives with like moms, they're like, oh, you were never really a mom. You were always much more dad-like. So that's always kind of interesting with them. And with my little kids, they don't remember anything different. Like my youngest, he saw a picture of me one time holding him when he was, I don't know, like a year or something. And he thought it was my sister. He's like, why is Auntie holding me in that picture? And I'm like, that's not Auntie, that's me. He's like, oh, you look weird. So like they don't have any memory of me being any different. And then actually even my big kids, like for them growing up, for a lot of their like more formative years, until I started getting heavily involved in church, I was very like boy presenting. I always had really short hair. I always just wore like, t-shirts and jeans. Like I was just very boy presenting. So they don't really, for them, I don't look a lot different than I did for them growing up. My little kids now will refer to me as their dad because then they don't have to explain it to people.
Right.
And so that's something. And so they've talked to me and they're like, does that bother you? I'm like, I don't care. Like you do whatever you need to do so that you feel good. Like that's totally fine for me. and they have friends who they will tell their friends that I'm trans, and then they have friends who they don't bother because they don't feel it necessary to have that conversation, and that is 100% their choice. And yeah, so they don't overly, they've dealt with it really quite well. I don't know that they've had a ton of issues. They, I think, have worked out things on their own for sure that I probably don't know about. I'm sure one day down the road I'll hear about it, but for the most part, they're all really well adjusted.
So tell me, how did transitioning, okay, can I get personal with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
We
Because we haven't gotten personal yet.
I so appreciate this conversation, Dean. Like, there's not many people that would be as open and as forthcoming as you are, and I feel like that's, it's conversations like this that just, I think, help us all feel connected more.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Like, that's the thing. If we can't have these conversations, then we're going to just continue to divide further and further.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us, dating and intimacy, like, how did that change? Or did it?
So, yeah, I mean, it did for a while. It was interesting because, like I said, after my miscarriage and when my husband and I at that time separated, and so again, I was like questioning my sexuality, trying to make sense of it, because I was like, okay, I'm really attracted to women. So if I'm really attracted to women, then I must be gay. And it's like, but I'm also attracted to men. And it's so wild for me how far we have come in the last, like, even 5 years, or like, as far as like understanding. And again, this comes down to labels, and I get that people don't like labels, but for me, like, I needed those labels to make sense of myself. Like, I couldn't make sense of myself without those labels. And so I finally came to understand that I am pansexual, like I had said before. And so I have attractions to people regardless of their gender. But I'm also demisexual, which means that I have to
I
feel a
haven't even
connection with
heard of
somebody.
this. What is
I know. Welcome to queer world. Welcome to queer 101, Melanie.
What is
But yeah, so
demisexual?
demisexual means that I have to form an attachment to somebody to feel a sexual attraction to them. So like, I can look at somebody and be like, oh, that person's cute, or that person's pretty, but I don't have that like sexual attraction to them, right? I can't get that sexual attraction to somebody until I have a connection with them. And then once I have a connection with them, then they get like even more attractive all the time.
Isn't
So
that real
that's,
life, though? Isn't that everybody?
no, if you think that, then you're obviously demisexual as well.
Well, I feel like that. I mean,
No,
there's people that, like, there could obviously be I mean, let's be honest. I've been married for 30 years, and I don't really question my sexuality, but I feel like most people in a relationship, the more intimate and the more safe you feel, the better they look.
you think that. Some people have the opposite, though, actually. Like, the more connected they get to somebody, the less attractive they are to them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that actually happens. And then, and I understand what you're saying, of course, like,
Yeah.
because there's a vulnerability there, right? So that
Yeah.
does make a difference for sure. But I honestly could not and would not have any desire to have sex with somebody if I didn't have a deep emotional connection with them first. Like, I need to have that connection before I have any sexual desires whatsoever. And that's not the case for some people. Like, I have a trans guy friend and he has no problems that way whatsoever. Like, because for a while I thought, well, maybe that's just a trans thing. Like, I have to really feel safe and comfortable. Oh no, he doesn't have that at all. He doesn't have to be connected to somebody at all. He's just attracted to people all over the place.
We call that something else.
Yeah, we do call him that sometimes. He's gonna love me that I'm talking about him, but that's okay.
You'll know who he is.
Oh, he'll know for sure.
So
Yeah.
is like, I feel like there's so many things that, tell us what, is there anything that surprised you in transitioning as far as your, like, intimate life and intimate connections with people?
Yeah, so I don't know where to, I don't know how much to say. I don't know how much your listeners want to hear, but
Honestly,
it
go
is,
for it. Like you
yeah.
have
So
to
for
share.
me, there's a big difference. Like when I started testosterone, that really helped me to understand my attractions to people because in my experience anyway, and I think this is probably a pretty common across the board, estrogen bodies don't work like testosterone filled bodies do. So when I started testosterone, when I saw people that were attractive, I mean, even if I am demisexual, all of a sudden my body is telling me like, oof, that person is attractive. And like that didn't happen before when my body only had estrogen in it and not testosterone. And so it's much more common for AFAB people, which means assigned female at birth.
Okay, thank you
So
for
it's
the
much more
explanation.
common. It's much more common for AFAB people not to realize that they are queer and that they are gay or lesbians compared to AMAB people, which is assigned male at birth, because for most women, they just follow the path of what they believe they're supposed to follow. And that means women fall in love with men, get married, they have babies, and their bodies don't tell them in the same way because and then they start to like connect with their friends who are girls, right? And that's normal. And girls often think that other girls are pretty and they love their girlfriends, right? Like that's not abnormal. So it's a lot harder for AFAB people to realize that they're queer compared to what it is for AMAB people. Because for most, people when they're, especially when they're starting to realize that they have attractions to like if they have attractions to the opposite sex, well, when you're going through puberty as an AMAB person, and I went through puberty as a like testosterone puberty in my 40s, so that was interesting. And so when you're going through puberty, then your body starts to like tell you like, whew, this person, either this girl's really attractive or that boy's really attractive or that person, right? And estrogen filled bodies just don't work that same way. At least they didn't for me, and I've definitely heard that from a lot of other AFAB people as well. So you just don't have that same understanding of your own like attractions. And so for me, like when I went on testosterone, that really helped me to realize who I was attracted to, and I wasn't only attracted to women, that I was definitely also attracted to men, non-binary people regardless of what gender they were. If that makes any sense whatsoever. I feel like I rambled there a bit, but
Yeah, no. So do you think there's been any glamorization or do you think that the trans movement has been shown in a way I guess the question is, do you feel like it has been glamorized or
I feel like it's been brought to our attention a lot lately. I don't necessarily think, I don't know. It's not fun. It's
no?
not
I can
something,
imagine.
it's not something I would have chosen for myself. It's
No.
not something I would choose for anybody. I love myself and I love who I am, but I would never have chosen to be trans. I would have just chosen to either be born the gender that I feel aligned with or to feel aligned with the gender I was born. Either one.
Right.
I would have preferred that, obviously. I think there's been a lot of attention brought to the trans community. I don't think it's being made like there's so many, like all of a sudden the world is being overrun by trans people. Well, trans people have been around since the beginning of time, but social media hasn't been around since the beginning of time. The media, as it is, hasn't been around since the beginning of time. So I think that there's just a lot of attention. And I think that that attention is being brought to trans people to divert from the things that we really need to be paying attention to. Like, there's nothing very exciting about me. I'm a pretty boring guy. Like, there's nothing that exciting about me that much attention should be brought to who I am, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think
So
that's a big thing.
what do you think that people boring Dean. I'm not going to say you're a boring guy. Those are your words. But, is what is it? God, there's so many questions that I just can't get out of my head today. But do you think that there's anything about you that people still don't get? Or do you feel like that this transition that people are able to see who you really are?
No, I don't think people will ever be able to just see who I really am without knowing me. Like there's no way. There's no way, because I can't walk into a room and meet you for the first time and you see me for who I am, because you don't see that I was a mother for 20 years and that I birthed 5 babies and that my entire world has centered around my kids. Like that's not, and that is a huge part of who I am. But that's true of everybody in a sense. Like I don't see you, I don't get to walk in a room and see you and know what your core values are. Right?
No, you don't know
none of us.
past.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know you either. Like until we get to know each other, until we get beyond the surface, none of us really know each other. Like, and we're all just making assumptions about each other all the time. And I'm just as guilty of it, of course. Like that's the thing. Like we're all just making assumptions of each other. We're all basing, some of those assumptions may be based on our own past experiences. Some of them may be based on our own biases, what we even maybe experiences with that person. That's the thing too. People are constantly growing and changing. Like people who knew me, 15 years ago also didn't know me at all, because I was hiding all of this part of me as well.
Yeah. So what's something you're excited about?
Something I'm excited about. I think I'm really excited for people to just stop being divisive and to just start connecting. Like having people connect is a big thing for me. It's something I'm really realizing lately. And for me, like connecting means belonging. It means, being able to get below the surface of each other. And I just love connecting with people. Like connecting with people is the thing that I love more than anything, I'm sure. Except for my kids, but I love my kids because I get to connect with them all the time.
So what's something that you have done? Because what I know of you is you're really stretching your limits, and you are challenging some fears, and you're putting yourself out there. So tell us what you're doing.
So I am doing coaching and consulting. I've done coaching for a while, but I'm kind of getting more into consulting and just working with people, organizations, leaders, to help them just uncover their unconscious biases and understand the importance of that we all have to have psychological safety in order to bring our real selves into any space that we come into, whether that be, in organizations, at work, in any type of situations, really.
So I'm so grateful for this conversation, Dean.
I am too. I'm really glad that we got to
Yeah.
talk, and that everyone's going to get to listen to me
Yeah.
ramble on.
Well, I just think that what you said there a little while ago was, basically connection being the main thing for everybody. I think that is it entirely. I think,
Yeah.
connection can change, and, putting yourself out there and, do what I see happening right now with, a lot of the younger generation and, some of the disconnection that's happened over the last number of years. I feel like we've lost some of that innate ability to connect and to socialize and to, the world is so online now that, it is so easy to sit and game and that be your experience, or our entire networks of people to be online and to lose some of those innate skills in person. And I just want to applaud you for having this conversation, but also putting yourself out there to be able for us to meet, to have this conversation. And yeah, I think this is going to bring some value to people, if not in necessarily to agree with what either of us have said, but I feel like even just some of my perceptions and judgments that I found myself feeling before thinking about this conversation coming up, and then, hearing the reality of it, I admit I had some judgments that I feel like have been challenged. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another big problem with how much we're just spending our time, separating ourselves from other people is that we are in our own bubbles of people, right?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
like I am mostly surrounded by queer people. And so that's a very different experience. And then like you're likely mostly not surrounded by queer people. Like we're always surrounded by the people who think like us, look like
Yeah.
us, act like us, talk like us. And when we do that, we don't get other people like
It's easy to have
we don't get to
biases.
learn from it absolutely is, yeah. And then once you start connecting with people, it's hard to keep those biases. Like I find that once I start connecting with people, it's hard for us not to like each other. And then if we don't like each other, well, that's valid too. We don't have to all like each other,
Yeah.
but you still see each other and you still can have empathy for each other,
Yeah.
even if you don't necessarily vibe with each other,
Yeah.
and that's hard to do. Once you start connecting, it's hard to continue to have those biases. But it's so easy to stay in our own little circles and not go outside of those circles. But I would challenge everybody to just get outside of your little circle and meet somebody different, and then you'll get to see the world through their eyes. And there's usually so much that's the same. That's the
Yeah.
thing. There's a lot that's the same, and then there's
Yeah.
little things that are different, right?
Yeah.
Because we are all just human beings.
Yeah. I 100% agree, Dean. Well, thank you so much. We're going
Yeah,
to
thank
end
you
this
as
here.
well.
And I think people will love you.
Thanks.
All right.